Much of the Scenic Rim's agricultural activity is centred on the fertile valley floors. But one couple is having great success farming native finger limes high up in the hills. Ian and Margie Douglas can't keep up with domestic and overseas demand, but say unless the federal government changes the fruit fly export rule, the fledgling industry will struggle to grow. The Douglases claim if the government doesn't step in, the industry is in danger of being lost to overseas countries, which have seen the fruit's potential and are planting their own finger lime orchards. If you look up from the little town of Rathdowney, you can just make out Ian and Margie Douglas's hilltop farm. They bought the land 30 years ago after Ian, a Melbourne-based barrister, spotted an ad in the paper.
A couple of days later we were on a plane and we came up here and fell in love with it. We bought it that day, signed a contract on a small piece of paper just outside the Rathdowney pub. Having done that, we went in and had a couple of scotches.
It was just a matter of, yes, we love it. And we're still having the same love affair 30-odd years later, which is crazy, but we are. There's some good ones over here. Yep.
After they scrapped plans to grow avocados, a wild native finger lime tree caught their eye.
Beautiful. And I think I told my brother, don't eat that when it was fruiting because it could be poisonous, which is ridiculous, I know now. He decided to taste it and said it was delicious, and that was it.
They planted 1,000 trees and waited 4 years for fruit.
That'd be good for lunch.
Early on, though, it was a struggle, as neither Margie or Ian had farmed before, and advice was scarce.
There was really no experience amongst the people that were growing finger limes at that time. We sent a small consignment overseas and it arrived in a condition of total deterioration. So we went back to square one and got some advice from a food scientist in Melbourne, and eventually we worked out how to allow these things to travel properly.
If nutting out how to grow and transport the fruit was hard, so was promoting it, as chefs and fruiterers were shy of buying what they didn't recognise and hadn't tasted. But years of talking to chefs is now paying off, with some of the country's top restaurants now customers.
Many times that I used to get on the phone, even to chefs, and say that we grow the native finger limes, and they then didn't really know what they were about. So it's been fabulous that now people do know and people are coming to us for them, which saves me a lot of work, a lot of talking anyway.
Social media has proved an effective and cheap advertising medium. The Douglases use Instagram to showcase the stunning farm views and what's inside the odd-looking citrus.
We get so many inquiries from overseas through Instagram. You know, we would get as many inquiries from overseas as we do just local.
One order posted to Canada the day Landline visited came via Instagram. But a bigger thrill was a 1,000 kilogram order to Japan. The Douglases spent months preparing the shipment, their biggest ever, and at $40 a kilo, their most expensive. The one disappointment, the fruit had to be sent frozen.
One of the problems we have with some exporting to some countries is that because it's a citrus, those individual countries believe that fruit fly must be associated with finger limes, which is not true. So we can't send fresh finger limes to Japan and other potentially huge markets, China, India, the United States and even little old New Zealand. We not allowed to send them there because of fruit fly concerns. Morning, boys. Morning, Michael here.
Ian Douglas says he approached the Federal Department of Agriculture for help 4 years ago.
And I was told after they'd considered my submission that we'd ticked all the boxes, but the real problem was that the industry was too small and that we should come back in 10 or so years and maybe then they could solve the problem for us. Well, that's just not good enough. I mean, the government wants start-up industries to succeed, and this is a genuine start-up industry with an Australian native.
The Federal Department of Agriculture told Landline Horticulture Innovation Australia is now responsible for providing advice to the department on the collective priorities for the sector, and it has not made a recommendation that finger lime access to New Zealand be prioritised. If finger limes were exempt from fruit fly protocols and could be exported fresh, the Douglases say they'd plant another 20,000 trees and increase staff from 2 full-timers to 4 and 5 part-timers to 30. They're frustrated too with the pest rules for fruit they send to South and Western Australia, as each piece must be inspected by biosecurity staff in Brisbane.
These guys keep on saying, well, look, we know we're wasting our time because we won't find fruit fly or we won't find melon thrips, but it has to be done. I can't sign this document saying it's clear unless I've looked at every piece of fruit. So we do that time and time again. We've done it probably a dozen times this season. And I just hope that next year we don't have to go through the same farce.
Oi, how are you, Ian?
Scott, welcome.
Good to see you. Thank you for having me.
Their lobbying efforts have extended into their own home, and their local federal member, Liberal MP Scott BUCHHOLZ.
So, mate, how many trees have you got here under production?
We've got about 3,500 in at the moment, and we've got another 1,000 trees on order.
Yep.
We've probably got one more shipment to Italy, to Milan next week, and then the following week, probably our last export for the year is going to Holland.
Ian Douglas told Scott BUCHHOLZ the industry was in danger of being lost.
There's a large plantation now in California, and there's another large plantation in Florida. They're being grown in Sicily, in South Africa, and in Thailand. So, buddy, I want you to solve that problem for me.
With their case made, it was time for Scott BUCHHOLZ to taste finger limes for the first time.
There you go, Scott. Yeah. They're beautiful with avocado as well.
Excellent. Avocado. It's like little lime angels dancing on your tongue. Each individual little polyp explodes, and the flavour lingers on the forefront of your palate for a long time.
Scott BUCHHOLZ says he'll fight for a rule change.
You know, we have only got a 4-year advantage on the international market. From a bureaucratic time, that time can disappear very quickly. So we need to set time frames and virtually have outcomes in place within 18 months, I would suggest. When we talk about, as a government, making the transition from the resources sector to a more innovative economy, I see no better example on such a fledgling industry in working with them to work through the hurdles that present themselves. And if that's not the job of a federal member in the electorate, well, I don't know what is.
A couple of good ones.
Yeah, that's terrific. That's similar to the one that I picked.
Yeah.
Ian Douglas is 80. The retired Queen's Counsel says he loves his new job, working alongside Margie every day. He says, though, their friends are surprised by their all-consuming retirement choice.
They think we're crazy, but I think they secretly they admire what we've done too, and it's certainly very hard work. I've never worked harder than I have in the last couple of years in doing what we've been doing, and Margie works very hard as well, but it keeps you young.
And they have no plans to slow down. 10,000 kilos will be harvested this year, and next year they hope their maturing orchard will yield nearly double that.
I really want this industry to succeed. We're only one grower, probably out of 50, and most of those would have operations smaller than ours. But it's potentially it's a very good industry for this country. It's my ambition before we can't do it anymore to make sure that it's working properly.